When it comes to 1080p and 1440p gaming, the 6700 XT is a fantastic GPU, as is evidenced by about a bazillion different videos here on YouTube. But what about VR? Is the 6700 XT enough GPU for someone who's looking to play games in VR? To answer this question, I tested the 6700 XT with 8 different VR games. In my test system, I paired the 6700 XT with a Ryzen 7 5800X CPU and 16 gigabytes of Corsair Vengeance DDR4 3600MHz CL16 RAM. And here's how it did. The first game we're taking a look at is what I feel is the most popular VR game ever, Beat Saber. And the 6700 XT had no problem running this game whatsoever. I set the render resolution to 4704 by 2384 in the Oculus app and the refresh rate to 120 Hz. In the game settings, I turned off anti-aliasing because I don't like how it makes things look a little blurry. Not to mention it also impacts GPU performance quite a bit. I set the render scaling in the game to 1.5, and as you can see, we were able to maintain a consistent 120 FPS at all times, with plenty of performance headroom to spare. This isn't all that surprising, of course, because Beat Saber isn't all that complex of a game. With these settings, though, Beat Saber ran silky smooth and looked astonishingly sharp and crispy. Next up on our list is Vader Immortal. For this game, I left the render resolution at 4704 by 2384, but turned the refresh rate of my Quest 2 down to 90 Hz. Vader Immortal only has 2 settings for graphical quality, low and high, so I set it to high and let it rip. While this game is a little more demanding than Beat Saber, the 6700 XT still had no problem maintaining 90 FPS with plenty of performance headroom still available. Just like with Beat Saber, Vader Immortal felt nice and smooth and looked amazing. Third on our list is my personal favorite VR shooter, Contractors. Once again, render resolution was set to 4704 by 2384 and the refresh rate to 90 Hz. All the graphics quality settings in-game were set to Ultra, and much like Vader Immortal, we got a solid 90 FPS and plenty of performance headroom to spare. I was able to run Contractors at 120 Hz as well, and gameplay was nice and smooth, but I had to set anti-aliasing to low and all the other graphical quality settings to high from Ultra to give us enough performance headroom to stay above 120 FPS. My captures of this game when playing at 120 Hz came out really choppy though, so just know this capture is not indicative of the actual experience in the headset. While this capture is a bit choppy and stuttery, actual gameplay was smooth, as you can see by the FPS and performance headroom graphs. One of my favorite games I've played this year is Red Matter 2.
Beta.
This game is visually stunning, it has an intriguing story, and really great gameplay. If you're interested in learning more about it, check out my video review popping up in the cards right now. The only graphical settings in this game you can mess with are the render scale, which I set to 1.2, and then dynamic and indirect shadows, which I both set to on. Once again, with the render resolution set to 4704 by 2384 and the refresh rate at 90 Hz, the 6700 XT gave us rock-solid performance. There were times the performance headroom fluctuated a bit, but we were able to maintain 90 FPS at all times, giving us a nice, smooth, immersive experience. Even as a flat-screen game, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 is one of the most hardware-demanding games out there, so my expectations going into testing this game in VR weren't very high. At first I kept the render resolution at 4707 by 2384 and the refresh rate at 90 Hz, and even with all the graphical settings at their lowest levels in the game, I was only getting between 25 and 30 FPS with the 6700 XT, which was not a good experience. To get a better and more or less consistent frame rate and to keep the performance headroom above 0, I had to keep all the game settings set at their lowest level and turn the render resolution in the Oculus app all the way down to 2432 by 1216 and set the refresh rate to 72 Hz. The graphics in this capture don't look half bad, but in the headset things were much more pixelated and blurry than I would like, so while the 6700 XT can run Flight Simulator in VR, I personally wouldn't recommend it, especially if Flight Simulator is the primary game you play and you're a graphics snob like me. Assetto Corsa is another flat-screen game that also added VR support after it initially launched. Even though this game is now over 8 years old, visually it's still a very good-looking game, and the 6700 XT was only just able to give us a nice playable VR experience. Being the eye candy snob I am, I set the render resolution to 4704 by 2384, but had to lower the refresh rate of the Quest 2 to 72 Hz. With the game's quality settings maxed out, you can see we are getting a constant 72 FPS, with about 20% performance headroom to spare. Personally, I think VR is the ultimate way to play driving games like this, especially if you have a driving wheel and pedals. Lone Echo 2 is an absolutely gorgeous game, and a stellar follow-up to the first Lone Echo. As I did with all the other games, I set the render resolution in the Oculus app to 4704 by 2384, but found I needed to set the refresh rate to 72 Hz to keep the performance headroom just barely above 0. The in-game resolution scale was set to 100%, and I used the medium quality preset, which still looks amazing by the way, and I also turned anti-aliasing off to free up some performance and keep the visuals looking sharp and crisp. Normally I don't like pushing the performance headroom this close to the edge, but as you can see, the 6700 XT was able to deliver a very solid 72 FPS in this game with the settings I used. Sure, I could have decreased the render resolution to give us some additional headroom, but I love those crisp, sharp graphics, and this game is an absolute visual stunner. The final game in the lineup is what many have deemed to be the greatest VR game to be produced thus far, and I tend to agree with that assessment. Half Life Alyx ticks all the boxes. Great story, great gameplay, and amazing visuals. Just like in my other tests, render resolution was set to 4704 by 2384, and I used the high fidelity preset in the game's performance settings. Half Life Alyx looks absolutely amazing with these settings, but as you can see by the performance graphs, I did have to set the headset refresh rate to 72 Hz when using these settings, and it didn't leave us much in the way of performance headroom. It typically hovered between 10 and 20%, but did dip below 0 for a bit from time to time, like in this clip where I'm shooting some headcrab zombies, which caused the frame rate to fall below 72 FPS for a few seconds, but thanks to the magic of how the compositor works, in the headset, I didn't even notice the frame rate drop at all, and the vast majority of the time, the 6700 XT kept us at a very nice 72 FPS, and gameplay both looked and felt great. I should mention, all the gameplay captures you've seen in this video were recorded directly to the Quest 2 at 4K, and I did all my testing via Airlink. Which, if you'd like to know what my Airlink setup is like, and what settings I use, you can click on this video here, and I will show you.